A storm howls. Lightning cracks. A lonely road snakes through the Welsh countryside. A car sputters to a stop, and a group of travelers, wet, weary, and desperate, knock on the door of a crumbling mansion. The door creaks open, and inside awaits one of the strangest, eeriest, most unforgettable casts ever assembled. This is The Old Dark House, Universal's gloriously bizarre 1932 horror comedy directed by the incomparable James Whale. On paper, it looks like your standard haunted house film, but The Old Dark House is so much more than that. It is scarier, funnier, and stranger. It's the kind of movie that will have you tense but laughing at the same time. And the cast is an all-star lineup with lives and legacies as fascinating as the roles they played. So today I'm going to introduce you to the wild ensemble that made The Old Dark House a cult classic. I'm Antonia Carlotta, and this is Universally Me, the channel for all things Universal and classic horror. My family started Universal Studios, they made the Universal Monsters, and they made The Old Dark House. James Whale made Frankenstein just 1 year earlier, and Universal wanted him to keep making monster hits. But Whale wasn't interested in repeating himself. Instead, he adapted J.B. Priestley's novel Benighted, layering it with dark humor, gothic atmosphere, and his signature camp wit. On set, James Whale made the Femme Mansion feel like its own character, a decaying labyrinth full of shadows, secrets, and danger. The sets were soaked in rain, lit with flickering candles, and built to feel claustrophobic. Audiences in 1932 didn't quite get it. It was a little too weird, maybe too funny, too ahead of its time. The film vanished for decades, believed to be lost, but when it was finally rediscovered in the 1960s, people finally saw it for what it was. A brilliant black comedy, one of the earliest examples of the Old Dark House subgenre of horror, and a showcase of some of the best actors of the era at the top of their game. This cast is the equivalent of Margaret Qualley, Sydney Sweeney, and Mikey Madison all appearing in Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood before they blew up. It's Fast Times at Ridgemont High, it's The Outsiders, it's Wet Hot American Summer, or Freaks and Geeks. It's chock full of A-listers before they were A-listers. So let's meet the benighted residents and visitors of this old dark house, starting with the guests, and then moving to the sinister inhabitants of the home. First, we have Melvyn Douglas as Roger Penderell. He is witty and charming. He cracks jokes in just the right way when things are looking grim. He's courageous even when he's scared, and he becomes our hero. He's the first to grab a torch when things get scary. Melvyn Douglas was born Melvyn Edward Hesselberg in Macon, Georgia. He quickly rose on the stage, but The Old Dark House was one of his first big film roles, but he would go on to have a legendary career. He won 2 Oscars, an Emmy, a Golden Globe, a Tony, and he has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He had a reputation as one of Hollywood's classiest leading men. He's our anchor in The Old Dark House. Amidst the madness, he's the one that reminds us that humor is sometimes the best weapon. And he manages, for the most part, to keep his cool when everyone else unravels. Next, let's talk about Charles Laughton. He storms into the house like a gale force wind as Sir William Porterhouse. He's brash, rich, and loud, but with secret heart, and you quickly learn about the heartbreak he's endured. I could easily see his character today played by somebody like Jack Black or Zach Galifianakis or Charlie Day. Those characters that are like right on the brink of being annoying, but somehow come off kind of lovable. This was Laughton's first American film, but he was already a powerhouse on the British stage. Within a year of The Old Dark House, he'd win an Academy Award for The Private Life of Henry VIII, and he'd go on to be one of the most respected actors of his generation. He really manages to make Porterhouse more than just comic relief. Like, you laugh at him, but you feel for him too. Also, he was married to our Bride of Frankenstein, Elsa Lanchester, even though, well, I guess that's a story for another time. His female companion in the movie, Gladys Duquesne, or Perkins, is played by Lilian Bond. On paper, she probably looks like just your flirty chorus girl stereotype, but Lilian Bond gives her spark and real personality. She's playful with Pendrell, she's caring toward Porterhouse, and she too is relatively sane even when the others are falling apart. Bond's real life was pure Hollywood hustle. Born in London, she worked her way up from vaudeville to Hollywood films. She acted all the way through the 1950s, and she held her own against this all-star cast. In 1932, when this movie came out, she was named a Wampus Baby Star alongside her co-star Gloria Stuart. And Gloria Stuart is very close to having a Universally Me episode of her own. What a life! And she was good friends with my Aunt Carla. Gloria Stuart plays Margaret Waverton, and she was just 22 at the time, still relatively new in Hollywood. She seems so much more steady or mature than her age would suggest, though, of course, she also brings fun to the film. She said a lot of the humor infused in the old dark house was James Whale's own influence. Though she is delicate and proper, she also finds her steel when she's assaulted by the inhabitants of the old dark house. She fights back, she outwits them, and she refuses to crumple. Gloria Stuart lived to be 100 years old all the way until 2010, and she was working almost the entire time. I talk about her a lot because of her role in The Invisible Man, but today she's probably most famous for her role as older Rose in Titanic. You probably know her from the 84 years meme. I met her quite a few times with my Aunt Carla. She was so nice. My only regret is not getting pictures with her, or at least not any pictures I can find these days. And rounding out our house guests, we have Raymond Massey, Gloria's cautious or skeptical husband. Massey, too, was still early in his career, but he would later become famous for playing historical titans, Abraham Lincoln in particular. As Philip Waverton, he is something of the straight man in this film. He's truly the most steady amidst the storm, but I think you can see his tension and how much he's trying to hold it together for the sake of everyone, but especially his wife. Now, let's get to the horror inside the house, the Femme family. And let's start perhaps with my favorite, Ernest Thesiger as Horace Femme. He is an absolute scene stealer. He's twitchy, high-strung, and deliciously sarcastic. Have a potato. If you loved Thesiger as Dr. Pretorius in Bride of Frankenstein, well, this is where James Whale first let him shine. Ernest Thesiger was a celebrated British stage actor and unapologetically flamboyant at a time when that could be dangerous. I imagine that that's what connected him with James Whale. And Whale encouraged that energy, and the result is a film that feels ahead of its time. Eva Moore as Rebecca Femme is the elderly, fanatically religious sister who lectures Margaret about sin while probably craving to be sinful herself. That's my take on it anyway. She's so intense, it's almost cartoonish, but it still feels rooted in something so real. And it kind of feels strangely modern or relevant today. Moore was a veteran stage actress with a career spanning 6 decades. In addition to her acting and being the mother-in-law of Laurence Olivier, she was also an activist for women's suffrage, and she would raise money for hospital and wartime causes. As far as I can tell, she was nothing like her character Rebecca Femme. And last but certainly not least, we have Boris Karloff as Morgan. Karloff was fresh off of Frankenstein, where he'd gone from anonymous character actor to overnight sensation. But somehow he still found himself in another role without lines. Karloff plays Morgan, the dumb, mute, brutish, alcoholic butler. Morgan doesn't speak. He looms, snarls, stalks, mumbles. He put his whole body into it. He is somehow both heavy and spry at the same time, with eyes that switch back and forth between predator and victim. He is both terrifying and tragic. Karloff's real story makes him all the more impressive. He was scraping by in bit parts for years before finally finding success in his mid-40s. Off-screen, he was famously gentle, kind, utterly professional, a stark contrast to Morgan's simmering menace. For the second time after Frankenstein, Boris Karloff proves that horror isn't just makeup or dialogue, it's presence. Without saying a word, without even clearly seeing his face, he communicates so much and dominates the screen. Now, there are two other actors in the cast, Brember Wills and Elsbeth Dudgeon. Both incredible actors, but their careers are not quite to the caliber of the rest of the cast. But altogether, this entire ensemble, so ahead of its time, is what truly makes the Old Dark House. Yes, the horror, the scares, the house, it's all amazing, but some of the best scenes are when all the characters are just sitting around talking. It's the dynamics, it's the layers. You don't get that every day, and it still holds up 93 years later. This cast is horror royalty, not because they wore capes or fangs, but because they created characters that were so real, you really believe them, and you are stuck in this house with them. If you love these Universal and classic horror deep dives, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button and the notification bell, share this video with someone you don't think would survive a night in the Old Dark House. Don't forget, paid members get bonus videos, pictures, and more. It's the best way to support Universally Me. Thank you. Bye.